Hey, do you have heavy clay soil? Let me show you what you can grow that starts like this and eventually grows to be like this. So these behind me are elderberry, and we've been growing these for about 4 years now. They are easily 12 feet tall. You see those way up there. And if I get close, you can see just how tall they really all are. And the thing about our property is that we have a lot of heavy clay soil, and we get water that collects um, a lot in the springtime, specifically, or if we get a really big rain. Actually, right now we're expecting a ton of rain here in the next few hours and even overnight, possibly several inches. I'm worried about our garden and the flooding in there, but I'm not worried about the elderberry. They grow naturally, they grow wild around here. This whole area all around us is clay. And when you drive around, you'll see elderberry growing on the sides of the roads, but they're very easy to grow. So, like I showed you at the beginning, a little pot was an elderberry cutting. I'm going to grab that and show you. So these start out, it's just a little stick. So this was cut off of one of these other plants. You stick it in some dirt, it grows roots, sprouts out the top, and it stays really small. First year, it really won't grow any more than this. Second year, let's see, I got some weeds here. But this would be a second year plant, about as almost as tall as me, almost 6 foot, about two, maybe three stems, and just a few berries developing on there. But by the third year, they absolutely explode. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you have heavy soil, and in fact, they'll do better for you in heavy soil. They like lots of water. You really cannot overwater them in starting out. They they don't do well with competition, and they need lots of water. So the heavy clay soil will work great for that. Um, Flowering has pretty much just ended. Let's see if I can show you some flowers here. Right here. So this bush here, let's see, you can see it up there. There's a big cluster of white flowers. There's some smaller ones right here. And each little flower is going to turn into a little berry. And you can see these plants are just absolutely loaded with these berries. They'll develop, not all at the exact same time, but they'll get to the point where they're all ready to harvest. The way you can tell is the berries will get dark in color. They keep getting a little bit larger. They stay really small, smaller than a pea, but they'll get dark, and right at the last second, the last couple of days, they'll plump up all of a sudden and turn almost black. And that's how you know when they're ready to harvest. If you subscribe and follow along, I'll show you later in the season how I harvest them. What I've found to be the most trouble-free way to do it. A lot of people struggle with harvesting elderberry. It can be a bit frustrating at times. You can see, look at this. Look at these. They're already getting heavy, laying down low. The other kind of cool thing about elderberry is that you can harvest the flowers themselves. So you could come in here, cut this cluster of flowers off and dry it out, and you can use it in tea. Makes a really nice tea. They smell amazing when they're in full bloom. This whole orchard smells absolutely incredible. When you get just a tiny bit of breeze that blows the scent or the aroma your way. But we've made a elderflower syrup out of these, and that was tasty. We don't use it a whole lot because it ends up being a lot of just processed sugar that's added to it. But it has a real nice flavor. You can add it to like a soda water or something, or again to tea, to sweeten up a tea a little bit. I think this might be the tallest one here. It's insane how tall these all are. But yeah, just walking up and down the aisles here, you can see, like I said, how they're getting heavy and falling in to the middle. These, in the springtime, when they first start to grow, these aisles, these bushes are growing 12 feet apart from each other. They grow up tall. Once they start to set fruit, they get heavy and they get weighed down. And as you can see, I can't even really walk through here. It probably would be beneficial to plant them at 14-foot rows. But I'm down in this, it's essentially a tunnel underneath these elderberry. Super easy to propagate. Like I said, they have those, they're just propagated from cuttings that you stick into the ground. So once you get a few, if you are patient and have a few years, you can propagate them and turn into a lot really quick. I have about 75 plants growing here separately. You can see, like here's one, right? And then there's another. So the rows, like I said, are 12 feet apart. But each plant, they were planted 6 feet apart from each other. And they all started out like that little stick you saw in the pot at the beginning. You can see here we have, this is 3-foot wide weed fabric or ground cover that we laid down on either side of the plant, or either side of the rows. And that's done a real good job keeping all kinds of grass and other stuff out from getting in there. You can see there are weeds growing, but one thing we want to do this year is at the end of the season and all the leaves drop, either this fall or maybe in the spring, is you can see there's maybe a foot and a half of space right there between the sections of ground cover. And so we want to kind of lift it up a little bit and then tuck in some compost and mulch over top of that to help feed and keep the weeds down. We'll feed the plants and then keep the weeds down. So let's see if we can keep going here. One thing some people will do when cultivating their elderberry is when the flowers set, is they'll come along and say at breast height or belly height, hip height, something like that. They'll take any flowers off that are that low because they do hang down so low as they get heavy, and sometimes they end up touching the ground, which won't necessarily ruin the berry, but it just makes it so critters can get to it. We have chickens that if they're out free ranging, they love to come out here and eat the berries. So if you've ever bought berries online, like the dried, dehydrated berries that you can get online, they are almost always from Europe, and they're actually a different variety than what I'm growing. So these are American elderberries, and what you're buying online are almost always a European variety. And those ones do have some toxicity unless they are properly processed and cooked. The American elderberry, there are scientific studies, college, college-based studies that show that they're not toxic to eat raw. However, it's still practice for everyone to cook them before they eat them. I'll go back this way. But they're not really eaten fresh anyways because they don't keep well. They actually, once harvested, they'll go bad in just a matter of 2 or 3 days or something. But so either you have to dehydrate them or freeze them. And if you do that, then they'll obviously keep indefinitely from there. Here's another row that I can't even get down right now. But we'll get all this cleaned up when it comes time for harvest. You can see how big and heavy these are getting. You can expect, if everything's just right, up to 10 pounds of harvest per plant. Maybe you can see here, this right here is all one plant. Okay, and obviously the plants run together. There's not as much to harvest in between, but this whole front, the top, and the other side is fully loaded with berries. So if you have sandy soil, yes, you can grow them, but they'll certainly need irrigated. But here we have clay, it's heavy, it's wet. These grow, obviously they grow great, and we do not water them at all. It's been a relatively wet summer, but even regardless, we've had some really dry springs and summers, and they do just fine. So that's nothing to worry about at all. But like I said, I'll show you how to harvest all that. I'll show you how to propagate them in the spring and all that. So if you want to follow along and you want to see that, subscribe. You'll get to see, and also I'll tell you how and why we started growing these in another video in the future. So thanks a lot. We'll see you in the next one.